I'll take her. The one you tried to hide. The Vampire King's words echoed through the parlor like a death sentence, except Clara wasn't the one dying. Her entire world was. Every belief she'd ever held about her worth shattered as his pale eyes locked onto hers, as his hand extended toward her in the corner where she'd spent a lifetime perfecting invisibility. Her sister, the beautiful one, the chosen one, stood frozen in her perfect gown while their father's face drained of color. And Clara, the rejected daughter no one had ever wanted, realized with terrifying clarity that the most dangerous creature in 7 kingdoms had just claimed her as his. She should run. She should refuse. Instead, her trembling hand began to rise, reaching for a fate she couldn't possibly survive. But to understand how the invisible girl caught the attention of an immortal king, you need to know how she learned to disappear in the first place. She had learned to disappear long before the Vampire King arrived at their estate. Clara stood in the corner of the grand parlor, hands folded, eyes down, perfecting the art of being furniture. Across the room, her sister Celestine held court like a sun surrounded by planets, her golden hair catching the firelight, her laughter like wind chimes carefully tuned to delight. Their father, Lord Cain, hovered near Celestine, adjusting the drape of her gown, ensuring every ringlet fell perfectly. No one adjusted Clara's dress. No one ever did. It had been this way since they were children. Celestine was the flower, Clara the root buried in dirt. Celestine got the music lessons, the imported fabrics, the portraits painted by artists brought from 3 kingdoms away. Clara got the leftover afternoons, the mended gowns, the silence. She told herself it didn't hurt anymore. She told herself that lie every morning. Tonight was different though. Tonight the air tasted like metal and old roses. Tonight her father's hands shook as he poured his 3rd brandy before sunset. Tonight servants whispered the name that made even cruel men check their locks. Alaric Tremaine. The Vampire King. He was coming here. To their house. And Clara knew with the cold certainty that lives in a rejected daughter's bones that she was about to watch her sister be sold like a prized mare. The double doors opened without anyone touching them. He walked in as if he'd built the room himself and was merely inspecting his property. Tall, dark hair that looked deliberately disheveled, eyes so pale blue they seemed to hold their own light. He wore black that cost more than their estate, and he moved with the kind of grace that came from centuries of knowing no one could stop you from taking whatever you wanted. Clara's breath caught. She had never seen anyone so beautiful and so terrifying at once. Lord Cain rushed forward, bowing so deeply Clara worried his spine might snap. Celestine sank into a curtsy that she'd practiced for 3 days, her dress pulling around her like spilled cream. Clara remained in her corner. Invisible. Safe. Alaric's gaze swept the room with the lazy attention of a predator who knew everything here was already his if he wished it. His eyes passed over the paintings, the furniture, Celestine's carefully displayed figure, her father's sweating face. Then his gaze landed on Clara. And stopped. She felt it like a hand closing around her throat. Those pale eyes pinned her to the wall, curious and amused and something else she couldn't name. Time stretched. Her heart forgot its rhythm. Then he looked away and she could breathe again. Your father sent me 12 letters, Alaric said, his voice like whiskey and smoke, each word precisely chosen. His accent carried the weight of countries that no longer existed. He claimed he had something of value to offer in exchange for my protection. I confess I was curious what a minor lord drowning in debt could possibly have that I might want. Lord Cain's smile looked painful. My daughter, your majesty. Celestine. She is celebrated as the greatest beauty in 7 counties. Accomplished in music, literature, conversation. A prize worthy of a king. He gestured to Celestine like a merchant displaying silk. Alaric tilted his head, studying Celestine the way one might examine a pleasant but unremarkable painting. She is indeed lovely, he agreed. Celestine's smile brightened, triumphant. But I have lived 1,000 years, Alaric continued, and I have seen 10,000 lovely faces. They blur together after the first few centuries. Beauty without substance is just well-arranged flesh. It bores me. The room went silent. Celestine's smile froze, cracking at the edges. Alaric turned, and his gaze found Clara again in her corner. She pressed herself harder against the wall, wishing she could melt into the wallpaper. He walked toward her. Each step deliberate. The room seemed to hold its breath. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell cedar and something darker, like earth after rain. "You," he said softly. "What is your name?" Her voice came out barely a whisper. "Clara." "Clara," he repeated, as if tasting the word. "And why are you hiding in the corner, Clara?" She didn't know how to answer that. "Because that's where I've always been," felt too pathetic to say aloud. Her father's voice cut in, nervous and sharp. "That is my younger daughter, Your Majesty. She is not part of the offer. Celestine is the one we discussed, the one worthy of your attention." Alaric didn't look away from Clara. "I'll decide what's worthy of my attention." He stepped closer. She could see flecks of silver in those blue eyes now, could see the way he looked at her like he was reading a book everyone else had dismissed as blank pages. "Do you know why your father offered your sister to me, Clara?" "Because she's beautiful," Clara whispered. "No. Because he owes a blood debt to my family that goes back 4 generations. His great-grandfather made a promise he broke. I have been patient, but all debts come due eventually. He offers me your sister as payment because he thinks beauty is currency." He leaned in slightly, and Clara's pulse hammered so hard she was certain he could hear it. "But I prefer something more interesting than beauty. I prefer those who have survived being underestimated. Those are the ones with real strength." He straightened and turned to face Lord Kane. The smile on his face was sharp enough to draw blood. "I accept your offer of a daughter, Lord Kane. But not the pretty one." He extended his hand toward Clara. The room tilted. "I'll take her. The one you tried to hide. The one you thought I wouldn't notice." Clara's world shattered and rearranged itself in the space of a heartbeat. If you've watched this far, you already know this isn't just another story. You're invested. You're feeling what Clara feels. So don't just sit there in silence. Hit that subscribe button and join the fastest growing vampire love stories community. We're building something special here, and I need you in it. Also, I'm dying to know, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments, because knowing you're out there, in Paris or Lagos or Minnesota, connecting with these stories, that's what keeps me creating them at 2 in the morning when I should be sleeping. Don't ghost me now. You're already here. And here's something to think about: if someone finally saw you after a lifetime of being invisible, would you trust it, or would you think it was a trick? Tell me in the comments what you think Clara should do. Clara couldn't move. Her legs had forgotten how. Alaric's hand remained extended, patient, while the silence in the room grew teeth. She looked at that hand, pale and steady, offering something she couldn't name. Behind him, her father's face had gone purple, and Celestine looked as if she'd been slapped. "This is absurd," Lord Kane sputtered. "Your Majesty, surely you're jesting. Clara is nothing. She has no accomplishments, no training for such a position. Celestine has been prepared her entire life to—" "I wasn't asking your permission," Alaric interrupted, his voice dropping to something quiet and deadly. "I was informing you of my choice. The debt is paid with a daughter. I've chosen which one. Unless you're refusing my claim, in which case we can discuss the alternative payment methods my family traditionally employs." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Lord Kane's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Alaric's attention returned to Clara, and his expression softened into something almost gentle. "It's your choice, Clara. You can stay here, in your corner, invisible and safe. Or you can take my hand and step into a life where you will be seen. I won't pretend it will be easy. My world is dangerous and strange. But I promise you this, no one will ever make you disappear again." She looked into those ancient eyes and saw something impossible. He meant it. Her hand trembled as she lifted it. When her fingers touched his hand closed around hers, warm despite every legend that said vampires ran cold. The moment their skin met, she felt it. A shock of recognition, as if some part of her had been waiting her entire life for this exact second. His eyes widened slightly, surprise flickering across his face. He felt it too. "Excellent choice," he murmured. Then louder, "To the room, we leave tonight." The carriage was black lacquer and silver, pulled by horses that made no sound. Clara sat across from Alaric, her small bag of possessions clutched in her lap. She'd owned so little that packing took minutes. He watched her with that unnerving focus, as if she were a puzzle he was determined to solve. "You can speak freely," he said finally. "No one has ever accused me of enjoying silent companions." Clara's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "Why did you really choose me?" "I told you why. You said I was interesting because I've been underestimated." "That's not a reason. That's an observation." His smile was sharp and approving. "See? Already proving my point. Your sister would have simpered and agreed with everything I said." "She's not stupid," Clara said, surprising herself with the defense. "She's been taught that agreement keeps you safe." "And what have you been taught?" "That I don't matter enough to need lessons in anything." The words came out bitter. She hadn't meant to say them aloud, hadn't meant to show him that wound so quickly. Alaric leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Your father is a fool. Your sister is a beautiful ornament. But you, Clara, you've been watching from the shadows your whole life. You see things they miss. You've learned to read people because your survival depended on being invisible. That makes you far more valuable than a pretty face. You're a vampire king. You could have anyone. Why someone like me?" His expression shifted, something darker crossing his features. "Because I'm tired of people who want me for my power or fear me for my reputation. I wanted to see what would happen if I chose someone who expected nothing." She met his eyes. "That sounds like an experiment." "Perhaps it started that way," he admitted. "But the moment you took my hand, it became something else." "What?" He didn't answer. Instead, he looked out the window at the passing darkness. "I haven't decided yet." The honesty unsettled her more than a lie would have. She was hurtling toward an unknown future with a creature who admitted he didn't know his own motives. Every instinct said to be afraid. But fear felt cleaner than the suffocation she'd left behind. His home wasn't a castle. It was something older, a manor that seemed to have grown from the earth itself, all stone and dark wooden windows that reflected moonlight like mirrors. Inside, it smelled of old books and beeswax candles. A woman appeared, elegant and sharp-eyed. "This is Margot," Alaric said. "She manages the household." "Margot, this is Clara. She'll need rooms prepared, a wardrobe, anything she requires." Margot's gaze swept over Clara, assessing. "As you wish, my lord. Should I prepare the East Wing guest suite?" "No," Alaric said. "The room's adjacent to mine." Margot's eyebrow rose a fraction, but she simply nodded and disappeared. Clara's heart hammered. Adjacent to his rooms. The implication settled over her like a heavy cloak. Alaric must have read her face. "I'm not going to ravish you in your sleep, if that's your concern. But you're under my protection now, which means enemies who'd like to hurt me will see you as a target. Proximity keeps you safe." "What enemies?" "I'm 1,000 years old, love. The list is extensive. He led her through hallways lined with paintings of people in clothes from eras she'd only read about. Some of the painted faces had his eyes. "Your family?" she asked. "Some of them. Most are dead now. My sister Rebecca is still around, causing trouble in Vienna last I heard. My brother Elijah occasionally surfaces to lecture me about responsibility. Family is complicated when you're immortal." There was something in his voice, a weight that spoke of centuries of loss. They reached a doorway. He pushed it open to reveal a room 3 times the size of the one she'd left behind. A fire already crackled in the hearth. The bed was draped in deep blue velvet. "This is yours," he said. "My rooms are through that door if you need anything. We'll talk more tomorrow. You should rest." She stepped inside, overwhelmed. "Alaric," she said, turning. He paused in the doorway. "Thank you for seeing me." His expression softened into something that made her chest ache. "You made it easy, Clara. You've been waiting your whole life to be visible. It radiates off you like heat." Then he was gone, the door closing softly. Clara stood in the center of the room, alone but less lonely than she'd ever been in her father's house. The days developed a rhythm. Alaric was gone during the mornings, attending to what he called tedious political matters. Clara explored the manor, discovering libraries and conservatories in rooms full of objects from dead civilizations. Margot warmed to her slowly, answering questions about the household. The girl had expected a dungeon and got a home instead, Margot said one afternoon, almost smiling. On the 5th day, Clara found the portrait gallery. One painting stopped her cold. A family scene, a severe-looking man, a gentle woman, and 5 children. She recognized Alaric immediately, younger but with those same piercing eyes. He stood slightly apart from his siblings, even in the painting. "That was before," a voice said behind her. She turned. Alaric stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Before what?" "Before my father's ambition destroyed us. He wanted power, made bargains with a witch who turned us into the first vampires. He thought it would make us strong, invincible. Instead, it made us monsters who watched everyone we loved grow old and die while we stayed frozen." He moved to stand beside her, studying the painting. "My father was killed centuries ago. My mother took her own life not long after. My siblings and I have spent 1,000 years trying to figure out what family means when you live forever." His voice carried the weight of every one of those years. "Is that why you chose me?" Clara asked softly. "Because I understand what it's like to be unwanted by your own family?" "Partly." His gaze shifted to her. "But also because when I looked at you, I saw someone who hadn't let rejection make them cruel. Your sister has been loved and praised her whole life, and it made her empty. You've been ignored and diminished, and it made you observant and resilient. Pain either destroys you or forges you into something stronger." "What did it do to you?" "Both," he admitted. "I've done terrible things, Clara. I've burned cities over insults. I've ended bloodlines for betrayals. I don't forgive, and I don't forget. But I also protect what's mine with everything I have. Family, loyalty, these are the only things that matter when you have eternity." He turned to face her fully. "I need you to understand what you've walked into. There are people who will come for you to hurt me. Being chosen by me isn't a fairy tale. It's dangerous. Then why bring me here? Because for the first time in 200 years, I looked at someone and felt curious about who they'd become if given the chance to bloom. And I'm selfish enough to want to watch it happen." The honesty was intoxicating and terrifying. "What do you want from me, Alaric? Right now? Just your company. The rest, we'll figure out as we go." 3 weeks passed like pages turning in a book she couldn't put down. Alaric was nothing like she'd expected. He was dangerous, yes. She'd seen him receive a messenger who delivered bad news and watched his expression go cold enough to make the man stumble over his words in terror. But with her, he was different. He was funny, with a wit dry as summer dust. He told stories about historical figures she'd read about, revealing them as fools or scoundrels or occasionally decent people trapped by their times. He asked her opinions and actually listened, debating with her about philosophy and art and whether humanity was worth the trouble of saving. "You argue with me," he said one evening, sounding delighted. "Do you know how rare that is? Maybe people are afraid of you." "You're not." She considered. "I probably should be. But you've never made me feel small. Everyone else in my life has." He'd looked at her then with an expression she was learning to recognize. Hunger and tenderness mixed together. One night, she found him in the music room, standing before a piano. He noticed her in the doorway. "Do you play?" he asked. "I was never taught." "Come here." She approached cautiously. He sat on the bench and gestured for her to join him. When she sat, he took her hand and placed her fingers on the keys. "Press down," he instructed. She did. A single note rang out. Again. Different key. Another note. He began to play around her single notes, creating a melody that incorporated her hesitant sounds. The music swelled, beautiful and strange, a duet between someone who'd had centuries to master the instrument and someone touching it for the first time. When the song ended, she realized she was crying. "What's wrong?" His voice was immediately concerned. "Nothing. Everything. I've just never been part of something beautiful before." His hand covered hers on the keys. "You're not part of it, Clara. You are it." The air between them changed, charging with possibility. He was close enough that she could feel the coolness of his skin, could see the silver flecks in his eyes catching firelight. "If I kiss you," he said quietly, "it won't be an order or an expectation. It will be because I've been thinking about little else for days. But only if you want it too." Her heart was a wild bird in her chest. "I want it too." He kissed her like she was something precious and breakable and worth savoring. When he pulled back, they were both breathing harder. "Well," he said, a smile playing at his lips. "That's inconvenient." "Why?" "Because now I'm invested. And I'm terrible at letting go of things I care about." She should have known it was too perfect to last. The attack came at midnight. Clara woke to the sound of breaking glass and Alaric's roar of fury from somewhere below. She grabbed her robe and ran into the hallway. Margot intercepted her. "Stay in your room. Lock the door." "What's happening?" "Enemies." Margot's face was grim. "They're here for you." Clara's blood went cold, but before she could retreat, 3 figures appeared at the end of the hall. Vampires, moving with that unnatural speed. "There she is," one of them hissed. "The king's new pet." Margot stepped in front of Clara, but one of the vampires backhanded her casually, sending her crashing through a wall. Clara ran. She made it to the stairs before they caught her, one grabbing her hair and yanking her back. Pain exploded across her scalp. Then Alaric was there, and he was terrifying. She'd never seen him truly angry. He moved like violence incarnate, ripping the vampire off her and tearing into him with a savagery that sprayed blood across the walls. The other 2 tried to fight back, but they were children playing at war against a general who'd invented the strategies. When it was over, all 3 attackers were dead or dying, and Alaric stood in the center of the carnage, chest heaving, eyes wild. He turned to Clara. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, mute with shock. His expression shifted from rage to something worse. Anguish. "I told you," he said, his voice rough. "I told you this would happen. They came for you because of me. You saved me. This time. But there will be a next time, and a time after that. This is what being near me costs. She reached for him, but he stepped back. You should go, he said. Back to your father's house or anywhere else. I'll give you money, protection from a distance. But staying here makes you a target, and his jaw clenched. I can't watch another person I care about suffer because of my enemies. So what? You're sending me away. I don't get a choice. I'm trying to keep you alive. No. Her voice was stronger now, anger burning through shock. You're afraid. You said you protect what's yours, but the moment it gets difficult, you're pushing me away. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You've spent 1,000 years losing people. So instead of risking it, you're choosing loneliness. You're making the decision for both of us because you think you know better. Clara. No. You chose me, Alaric. You pulled me out of my corner and made me believe I mattered. You don't get to put me back now because you're scared. I'm not scared, he snapped. I'm practical. They will keep coming. Then kill them all. Isn't that what you do? You said you've ended bloodlines over betrayals. These people attacked your home, hurt your people, tried to take something of yours. Where's that monster now? His eyes flashed. You don't want to see that side of me. Yes, I do. I want all of you. The gentleman and the monster. But you have to want me enough to let me stay. The silence stretched between them, broken and jagged. I can't, he finally said. Then I guess I was wrong about you seeing me. You just saw a project. Something to fix and shape and discard when it got complicated. She turned and walked away, every step feeling like dying, waiting for him to call her back. He didn't. What would you do if someone pushed you away to protect you? Would you fight for them or let them go? Drop your thoughts below. Clara spent 2 days in her room, grief and rage warring in her chest. Margot brought food she didn't eat and updates she didn't want. He's in his study, Margot said on the second day. Hasn't come out. Hasn't fed. Just sits there like a statue. Good, Clara said bitterly. But her anger was cooling into something worse. Understanding. She'd seen his face when he looked at that family portrait. Had heard the weight in his voice when he spoke of loss. He wasn't pushing her away to be cruel. He was pushing her away because everyone he'd ever loved had been taken from him, and he couldn't survive it happening again. The realization didn't make it hurt less, but it made it make sense. On the third day, she made a decision. She found him in his study, exactly as Margot described. He sat in a chair by the window, staring at nothing. He looked up when she entered, and the devastation in his eyes nearly broke her resolve. You're still here, he said. Did you really think I'd leave? I hoped you would. For your own good. She crossed the room and knelt in front of him, taking his cold hands in hers. Alaric, listen to me. I spent my entire life being invisible because I was afraid that if I demanded to be seen, I'd be rejected. You spend your eternity pushing people away because you're afraid if you hold on, they'll be taken. We're both hiding from the same fear. It's not the same. Yes, it is. She squeezed his hands. You told me pain either destroys you or forges you into something stronger. It forged me into someone brave enough to fight for this. Let it forge you into someone brave enough to keep it. People I love die, Clara. It's a fact of my existence. Everyone dies eventually. But pushing me away now means losing me by choice instead of by chance. Is that really better? His thumb brushed across her knuckles, the gesture achingly tender. I burned empires for less than what they tried to do to you, he said quietly. The family that sent those vampires, I could end them. Root and branch, everyone who shares their name. I've done it before. Then do it, Clara said firmly. Not because I want revenge, but because you need to show them that I'm not a weakness they can exploit. I'm a line they can't cross. His eyes searched hers. You're asking me to be the monster. I'm asking you to be yourself. All of yourself. The part that plays piano and the part that burns empires. I'm not afraid of either. Something in his expression cracked open. You're serious, he said. You'd stay, knowing what I am, what I'll do. I'd stay knowing exactly who you are. The vampire king who chose the girl in the corner because he saw something worth choosing. He pulled her up and into his lap, cradling her face in his hands. I don't deserve you, he said. Probably not. But you chose me anyway. He kissed her then, desperate and claiming, and she felt the decision solidify in him. When he pulled back, his eyes had gone cold and determined. The Moretti family, he said. That's who sent the attackers. They've been testing my borders for decades, thinking I've gone soft. His smile was all teeth. Time to remind the world why my name still makes them fear the dark. What will you do? End them. Every last one. Then send word to every vampire family in existence that you are under my protection. Mine. Untouchable. The possessiveness should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like being wrapped in armor. The war, if it could be called that, lasted 3 weeks. Alaric was methodical and merciless. He didn't just kill the Moretti family leaders, he dismantled their entire power structure, claimed their territories, and left their name a cautionary tale. Clara watched him become the legend he'd always been, and learned that loving a monster meant accepting that sometimes monsters were necessary. When it was finished, he returned to her covered in ash and exhaustion. It's done, he said. No one will touch you. I've made certain of that. She cleaned the blood from his hands herself, gentle and thorough. The other families sent emissaries. Gifts. Pledges of respect. Word spread about the vampire king and his chosen bride, the woman he'd gone to war for. Bride. The word followed her through the halls now, spoken by servants and visitors alike. 1 month after the war ended, Alaric found her in the library. I have something for you, he said. He held out a small box. Inside was a ring, old silver set with a deep blue stone. It was my mother's, he said. One of the few things I have left from before. I want you to have it. Alaric. I'm not good at asking, he interrupted. I'm used to taking what I want. But this, I'm asking. Marry me, Clara. Not because of debt or obligation. Because I choose you. Because you walked into my life expecting nothing and became everything. Tears blurred her vision. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting centuries for her. The wedding was small, just a handful of people in the manor's garden under a moon so bright it turned everything silver. Margot cried. Elijah appeared long enough to give a speech about Alaric finally showing good judgment. Rebecca sent a gift from Vienna with a note that said, "About time you found someone who could handle you." Clara wore a dress the color of midnight, and Alaric couldn't take his eyes off her. When they were pronounced bound, he kissed her like he was claiming her all over again. That night, in their shared rooms, he held her close. I'm still going to be difficult, he warned. Possessive and vengeful and occasionally insufferable. I wouldn't want you any other way. And I'm still going to outlive you, unless you want me to turn you. I'd offer, but only if you wanted eternity. She'd thought about it. Maybe someday. But not yet. I want to live this life fully first. However long I have. His arms tightened around her. Then I'll make every moment count. And he did. Years passed. Clara learned to navigate the politics of the vampire world, discovered she had a talent for negotiation that made her invaluable in Alaric's court. She was no longer the invisible girl in the corner. She was the Vampire King's wife, respected and occasionally feared in her own right. Her family tried to contact her once. Her father sent a letter asking for money, claiming Celestine needed a proper dowry. Clara burned it without responding. Some debts were paid in full by walking away. Alaric kept his promises. He protected her, cherished her, and never once made her feel small. And when she finally asked him, decades later, to turn her so they could have forever, he wept before he agreed. On the night of her turning, as her human life faded and immortality rushed in, the last thing she saw was his face. "I've got you," he whispered. "Always." She woke to eternity with his hand in hers. And she was finally, perfectly, completely seen. So here we are at the end. You made it through Clara and Alaric's entire journey. You felt her pain, her hope, her love. You watched a vampire king fall for the girl no one else noticed. And if you watched all the way to this moment and you haven't subscribed yet, I need you to ask yourself why. This story took me hours to craft, to write, to shape into something that would make you feel. I stay up until my eyes burn creating these for you. The least you can do is hit that button. Subscribe. Join this family. We're the fastest growing vampire love stories community, and you belong here with us. And listen, I need to know something. Tell me in the comments, would you choose immortality for love, or would you rather live one perfect human lifetime? I'm genuinely curious what you think. Also, where are you watching from? Your city, your country. I want to know where in the world my stories are reaching people. Don't just disappear now. You're part of this. So subscribe, comment, and let me know you were here. Because your support is the only reason I keep doing this. Don't break my heart. Click that button.